Welcome to Franchise Focus. I'm Laura Blackmore, your host, and a franchise consultant with over a decade experience in franchising. Franchising isn't one size fits all, and this podcast helps focus on what truly matters. Each week, we pull back the curtain with top industry experts, whether you're exploring your first franchise or expanding your portfolio. Let's dive in. Welcome to Franchise Focus. Today, I'm joined by Kelly Macht, Director of Franchise Development at Franchise Fastlane, who works directly with Bloomin Blinds. If you've ever wondered what it takes to identify a high-performing brand in a crowded market or how a family-run business can become a breakout franchise, you're in the right place. So Kelly, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you join us.
Oh, Laura, totally my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me today.
Can you give a little background about how you got into franchising and hooked up with Bloomin Blinds?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting story. I used to work and manage shows for the franchise show. They were the smaller regional shows across the country that allow people to come together and meet with the franchise brands that are expanding in their communities. And when Bloomin Blinds first started franchising, they used those shows as an avenue to get out and meet people that were looking for franchise opportunities. It was, low cost, something they were very passionate about. They could talk about their family business themselves. And so they were exhibitors of ours. That was when it was still just the three brothers running the business. And fast forward 10 plus years now, and I had an opportunity to start doing their franchise development. And I jumped at the chance. It's just incredible to watch where they've grown from this, small family-run business, really had no business franchising. They did not know what they were doing at that point in time. And seeing where they've grown with the infrastructure, the team, the support, resources like call center and national training center, technology, focus, things like that have really propelled the brand to be a monster in home services.
That is fantastic. It has been impressive to watch. It's impressive to watch the technology they use. And like you talked about the service, it's well regarded in the marketplace. I hear people talking about it. I know candidates of mine have used their services, and no, it's a fantastic brand and in a big booming market. I know it's competitive, but you guys have got a great story.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, I guess, how the Stewart family launched it and how they transitioned into franchising.
Yeah, for sure. So we are a family-founded business. Mom founded the business. Her three sons ultimately came to work in the business. So this is an organization that is, family at heart. Often people talk about, franchise families, and we really are a franchise family. The Stewart family have been in the vans. They've done all of the work that they're asking the franchisees to do, and they truly are experts in the industry. They did it for many, many, many years before leaning in on franchising and developing that model. And the reason they did that was because they grew to such an extent. They're based in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, and they grew to such an extent that in order to continue to grow the business, they really had two choices, Laura. They could either tear the family apart and really start expanding and allow them to move into different areas of, Texas or the country, or they could choose to franchise. And that's exactly what they did. And I think they're certainly glad that they've done that, because the three brothers still work intimately in the office together day to day.
How does that shape the overall culture or brand itself with it being such a family run and they're still in it day to day? How does that?
Yeah. I think one of the words that I always challenge with the candidates that I meet with, I say, look at the franchise brands that you're working with. I mean, Bloomin Blinds, we're not the big engine in franchising. We're much more intimate if your candidate is looking for that personal, intimate relationship with their franchisor. Bloomin Blinds is a perfect brand for that. But, as you're doing that, I challenge my candidates, like, look at the brands that you're looking at and look at how accessible the leadership and the support teams are to you, to their franchisees, not just in the beginning, not while they're wooing you to become a franchisee of the system, but day to day, 6 months in, 2 years in, like, are you still getting somebody on the phone who can answer your questions when you're in the field in the moment? And I think Bloomin Blinds has been really successful about growing a team of incredibly knowledgeable people in the window covering industry and ensuring that franchisees have access at any point in their day to get the answers to the questions that they need in real time. And so they're really incredibly diverse in their focuses in the business as well. We've got the one brother very technically savvy, knows the product inside and out and the repairs that make us so different. We've got the other one who's truly invested in the AI side of things and really focused on technology. He's also heavily involved in the International Franchise Association and making sure that Bloomin Blinds and the name Bloomin Blinds really is part of the bigger culture of franchising and not just living in a silo. And then we've got the oldest brother who really is our chief growth officer and just really committed and compelled to taking franchisees through that journey very independently to give them the kind of business that they're looking for, which can be very different from their neighboring franchisee.
Yeah, no, I imagine it really resonates with people. And do you find that most people that continue on and sign on are ones that really wanted that personalized touch and that relationship, I guess, with the
Yeah,
franchisor?
I've been doing the development for the brand for about just over 2 years now, Laura. And consistently, go back to candidates that we've just placed, and I say, "Hey, Laura, help me understand, why did you choose Bloomin' Blinds?" And I
Hmm.
hear over and over again, it was the culture. It really compelled them. The people, the team that they've assembled, the way that they are so interconnected, the ongoing dialogue and opportunity to connect with other franchisees in a formalized setting, whether that's regular marketing meetings or it's new owner meetings. It's coming back in for training, or we've got our family reunion, in other words, our annual conference happening just this coming week, right? There's so
Oh,
many
wow.
opportunities to stay interconnected as family does. Go off, you do your thing, but you always come back to the family. And I think they've really kept that alive in the culture that they've created, even today.
Oh, that's fantastic. And the offering, I guess, obviously it's blinds, but do you do sales, installs as well as repairs, right?
We do. So most of our competitors are certainly offering sales and installations.
Hmm.
But Bloomin' Blinds was actually founded on blind cleaning and blind repairs.
Oh,
And
blind
we were
cleaning too.
doing that long before we actually started selling window coverings. And so we've really become experts in an area that many of our competitors aren't knowledgeable on or aren't willing to spend the time doing. And that is the repair aspect. Last year alone, we got into over 6,500 homes just on repairs alone. Those were homes that our
Really?
competitors didn't get into. And again, finding franchisees that want to create and establish relationships with their local community and being problem solvers, that's getting them a foot in the door for future sales, future referrals, great Google reviews. All of those things are going to grow their business. And that
Right.
repair element fundamentally differentiates us.
That's very cool. Is it a large percentage of the revenue, or is it just, as you said, that foot in the door and that name recognition?
Yeah, it really is that foot in the door. I mean, as our franchisees become more polished and professional in the repairs, I mean, the first repair they do is not going to be a simple one. It's going to take them some time, right? But we'll
Yeah.
coach them through that, and we certainly have tremendous training for that purpose. But as they become more proficient in doing those repairs, it's 10 or 15, 20 minutes in a home, creating rapport with that homeowner,
Hmm.
being a problem solver, providing a service that probably wasn't readily available in their community. And that
Right.
becomes memorable to that homeowner. It's those connections. We've all bought home services in some capacity,
Right.
right? And we tend to buy from people that we like, people that we connect with. So finding some great people in terms of our franchisees is incredibly important to us because we know that that relationship starts in the home and can absolutely blossom, forgive the pun, that really wasn't intended, but into additional revenue opportunities, whether that's in the immediate or down the road, especially if you're looking for that opportunity while you're in the home.
Okay. And an owner, you mentioned, so the owner goes and does the repair. Does the owner typically doing the repairs, installations, or are they outsourcing that? How are they typically?
Yeah. So, I think the brand, like all franchise systems, tend to have an evolution, as
Hmm.
we've grown. And in the early days, the Stewart family tended to attract a lot of people who were doing exactly what they were doing. And they were looking for people who, were essentially buying themselves a job out of corporate America. And many of
Hmm.
our original franchisees have stayed in that model. But in this moment in time, we're absolutely looking for business builders. We have all of those elements in play that truly allowed you to build a scalable business, invest in a scalable business with Bloomin' Blinds. So we have found that an owner operator model does work best for us. It is what we are focused on. We're not
Right.
trying to be all things to all people and say, yeah, you can kind of fit this in with your day job, right? We're not that, but we
Right.
are an owner operator model. Most of our owners do start in the van themselves. They're doing the sales, the installations, and the repairs. They're learning a new skill in their
Right.
business from the ground up. And then we become very highly scalable. We're seeing a lot of franchisees coming back, buying additional territory. They're scaling into additional vans, hiring full-time employees, and they tend to hire somebody who's going to do their installations and repairs first, because many of our franchisees really love being in the business, but they want to do the things that are driving the sales.
Right.
Yep.
And talk about that scale. What are they typically leveraging once they get to that point that it makes sense for them to pull back from some of that day to day?
Yeah. So, I mean, we do have a tremendous marketing program that is in play, and it's going to kickstart while you're in training. You're going to launch with some recognition, and we've got a call center that's ideally taking some inbound calls and already booking appointments for you for week one right out of training, which is great. But
Yeah.
our franchisees that really do the best with us are the ones who truly want to be community connectors. They're the ones who want to be out at local events. They want to be part of, a community parade or a community festival. They want to go to the home shows. They want to talk to people. They're really proud of their business, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to connect with people that they know, especially not only homeowners, but also being able to connect with real estate agents,
Right.
developers, designers, people who are going to use them as a source of reference for their own customers.
That's fantastic. As you start building that community presence and to some level some commercial accounts, where does it? What's the evolution of a mix between residential and commercial as the experience moves on with the franchise?
Yeah, it's really interesting because there is tremendous commercial opportunity. I mean, I say light commercial because we're talking more about, a restaurant, a business that's in a strip mall, a dental clinic, things like that. We don't
Hmm.
do large commercial bids for schools and hospitals and things like that.
Right.
But the
Right.
light commercial, where the scope of the job is really no different than doing a whole brand new house build, right, is a perfect opportunity for our franchisees. They don't leverage it nearly as much as they could or should. And we're looking at some ways that we can really enhance that opportunity for our franchisees. And we continue to add to our product lines because it's not just interior products that we do either, Laura. We do a full exterior line of products
Right.
as well. So people, especially during COVID, so many people enhanced their outdoor living spaces,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And now we give them the protection from sun, wind, bugs, those kinds of things through outdoor applications that allow them to
Whoa.
really enjoy those dining spaces or the lanais or the covered patio areas that they've got. So it's become a booming piece of our business for the
I would
franchisees
imagine.
on that. Yep.
And then kind of a unique way of going in. I mean, often you're thinking of screen companies, but it's so interesting that you're right in there already bidding on other things and you could talk to them about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one of my
that's neat.
favorite stories, because as I start talking to candidates, I love to tell them stories. I think it allows people to see themselves in a situation better or to relate better. And so we have a great story, and I encourage my candidates, like when you're talking to franchisees, ask them about that repair aspect that we do and how that turned into something
Hmm.
more, right? Like, so it's a $250. What did you get out of it that was more, right? And so we have a great story of a franchisee, very, very well versed franchisee in repairs. And he went in to do a repair that he quite literally couldn't repair. We can't repair everything, right? But we try. And he was able to explain to the homeowner why he wasn't able to do that repair. Well, it turned into a several $100 replacement of the window coverings instead, which was great. But he's astute enough to have some dialogue with the homeowner while he was in the home, and he looked out the kitchen window as they were just talking, and he said, "Oh, I see you have that beautiful outdoor living space. Did you know that we offer outdoor applications as well?" And simply handed them a brochure. And it turned
Wow.
into a dialogue. And before he left the house, he had a sale for outdoor products that ranged well over $10,000 simply because he went in to do a repair.
Wow. See that is powerful. Wow.
Yeah. So we
That
hear
is
stories like this from franchisees all the time. And again, it's
right.
taking the differentiator that we have, be able to connect with the homeowner in their home, and then look around for opportunity to further service them without really selling. Everything we do is consultative sales. We're not looking for great salespeople. This is just about
Okay.
connecting with people, looking around, being aware of surroundings, and having dialogue with them. Leads to all kinds of great things.
Fantastic. When they start off with typically one van. Let's say they're doing
Yeah.
multiple markets. When do they grow into additional? And like,
Yep.
how does that cycle work in terms of
Great
getting more
question.
employees, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, most of our franchisees do start just themselves independently in the business. I don't want that deterring. We are just signing, actually today, a really great female candidate who knew right out of the gate she's super connected in her community, but she wasn't going to want to do the installations and repairs ongoing. She's still coming out to training. She's going to learn how to do all of that as the backbone of the being the business owner, but she's going to hire somebody, whether you do that through a W-2 model or you do that through contract labor. You
Hmm.
can still hire somebody. Now, obviously, that's putting more money out of pocket. There's
Right.
more operational expense. So we do encourage most of our franchisees to just start in the business independently. An average van for us, Laura, can do about $500,000 in revenue before
Okay.
you really need to start thinking about scaling into vehicle number 2. And then it really is just rinse and repeat for vehicle number 3 and 4, etc. Right? So sky's really the limit. It's really interesting to know that our top performing franchisee is actually in a secondary market. He's in Birmingham, Alabama. He's
Yeah.
operational out of only about 2.5 territories. And he's running, I believe he's up to his 6th van with us now, just
Wow.
opened in 2020. So, great
Wow.
success stories of people who can truly grow a business. But
Right.
this is somebody who started learning the business from the van himself. And now he's grown this into something that is
Wow.
really made him the blinds guy in Birmingham.
It's a, it's a wonderful lifestyle business, right? You're not crazy hours. You're going to set your schedules. You do not have any emergencies.
I love
Most
that you
people are going to
said
be,
that because I always say to people that one of the best things about Bloomin' Blinds, well, really Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing, right?
yeah,
There's no blind emergencies. I love that you said that. But there's no blind emergencies, and it really has been life changing for people that have families. We have a lot of people with families, people that want a little more flexibility. They want to be able to get to their kids' soccer practice and be the
right.
coach on the team and do those things. We had a gentleman who became a franchisee. He'd been in the hospitality industry his entire life, and I still get goosebumps when I tell the story. The very first year he owned his Bloomin' Blinds was the first year he spent Christmas at home with his kids. Like, that's life changing,
Yeah. My gosh.
right?
My gosh.
Can you imagine?
And we're talking to people every day that really want that life change, but oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
And the good thing is we have a really interconnected franchise community here, as I've mentioned earlier. And we're really good about, we do regular weekly franchisee validation calls. So my collective candidates can be speaking with a franchisee that that has put up their hand and said, hey, I remember being in that seat. I needed
yeah.
answers to my questions. So let me give back to the people that are looking now. And so we do a wide range of new franchisees and legacy franchisees, ones that have scaled, some that are still working independently. So franchisee candidates can really see themselves in different scenarios, big markets, smaller markets. Some people getting to the tail end of their career and wanting to create something for retirement. Other
Right.
young families who are like, we don't want the corporate life as part of our
Right.
family life. We want something more and more flexible. We want things that our kids can grow into. We have tons of families that have older kids working in the business. They're teaching them how to be business owners. They're teaching them that there's something more to life, and you
That's
don't have to
fantastic.
always take that traditional path. And they're teaching them how to work hard and grow something of their own and create those legacies for their families as well. So we really do get people coming in from all walks of life, but they all have that same pain point that corporate life truly isn't what's serving them anymore.
We touched on the call center a bit. And can you talk a little bit about some of the marketing and how you've used credible technology, your own
Yeah.
proprietary AI to bring customers in for franchisees?
Absolutely. So we love AI and we are working to revamp our tech stack from end to end. This is really
Hmm.
revolutionizing what's happening in franchising. We're one of the first brands to truly grasp this, and it touches everything right from client acquisition right through to your cash flow management. And so we're
Right.
rolling it out in stages because everybody's always a little adverse to change, especially within business and systems and processes that they've been using for a long time. So we're rolling it out in bits and pieces. The marketing was one of the biggest pieces that we knew was going to have the most immediate impact for our franchisees.
Hmm.
So that's where we started. It's now touching our call center. So we do have a dedicated in-house call center that takes all of our franchisees' inbound calls and actually schedules their appointments. So our
Wow.
franchisees can stay more connected to their customer base and growing their business and not worry about getting that next appointment. But it's really the marketing that's going to be the driver of that engine. So there are a couple of different marketing firms that we use. Two are more traditional ad agencies. The third one is definitely more AI focused for people that are earlier adopters of that and willing and wanting to lean in on that. So franchisees have a choice, and I think that's so very important. They will vet the different marketing firms that we have approved as part of their onboarding process, Laura. So that marketing agency, whichever one they choose, is going to primarily do all of their digital marketing for them, and that will be handled. But again, it's the franchisees, it's the difference. And then that's going to drive the calls, ultimately, the calls, the web inquiries, et cetera, into the call center. But at the end of the day, it's still those franchisees that are really connected in the community and doing some of those grassroots initiatives and really proud of the business that they're growing and creating in their community and wanting people to know who they are, that we're
Right.
seeing having the best success with us. So it's a combination of both, but the digital marketing piece really will propel our franchisees forward, especially in the early part of their journey when their community doesn't know that they're there yet. It's so
Right.
very important. And then that dynamic starts flipping, and we start seeing, as they've been in more entrenched in their communities, it's the word of mouth piece that really starts getting out there. The community knows exactly who they are, and it's just referral business and word of mouth. So we do see a real
Oh,
dynamic switch as
yeah.
franchisees continue to grow their businesses.
How many franchisees are you up to now?
We've got about 80 franchisees now, maybe just over. We've been fortunate. We just signed 3 new ones last week, which was super exciting. But we've still been, our growth has been very intentional. We've not been
Hmm.
one of these big explosive brands. We want to
Right.
make sure that the infrastructure, the resources, the support are there. We do have some franchisees that came on in the very early days who, again, they've started aging out, or the business that they bought back then that was very analog has now
Right.
turned into a very different business. And it's just no longer suiting them. But for that candidate who truly is looking for, that low investment, we are a mobile business. We actually fully outfit the full vehicle for all of our
Okay.
franchisees. So we make it super easy and quick for them to get launched and running a viable business with us. But, again, no inventory. You don't have to have an employee to start. There's so many pluses to being able to truly leave corporate America or leave that job that perhaps you've been dreading or thinking about leaving for so very long, and take that leap into business ownership. Many of our franchisees start with 1 or 2 territories
Okay.
and ultimately come back. We've had many come back over the years and say, I'm ready to start growing this business, right? Let's get some more territory. Let's acquire that. I'm getting my next van and things like that. So it can be really done in stages, and it's really important. We listen to our franchisees and what their goals are so that we can ensure that we're getting them the right amount of territory and giving them the business that they ultimately want to be running.
That's fantastic. So if they move into multiple bands, obviously then they're hiring somewhat of a salesperson. What is that role
Yeah,
is
so
going
it
to?
can be a couple of different things. So, if sales is not the piece that you're loving, maybe you want to hire a salesperson, somebody who's going to be really dynamic and driven and go out and do some of that connecting that isn't your strength. And maybe you're more technically inclined, right? But if it's the flip side, we typically see a franchisee first hiring somebody who's going to be doing installations and repairs
Right.
on their behalf, right? And the nice thing about it is you're not hiring skilled labor, right? You're hiring for soft skills. We're
Okay.
looking for people. The franchisees that we place, Laura, you're going into somebody's home. You've got to be personable. You've got to be warm. You've got to be able to listen, right? And just connect with those homeowners. And when you're hiring, you're looking for that same skill set. We have a tremendous training facility. We put our franchisees through 2 full weeks of training. And I think it's so imperative that they have that foundation. I hear from more and more people that I'm working with different brands, with candidates, et cetera, that the training is not always as robust as it should be in order to truly get a franchisee well versed enough to go and do the job when they leave training. And so spending
Wow.
2 full weeks hands on, we've got a national training center that is down the street from our corporate offices. It has a mock home, a mock backyard. They do a ton of role playing. We make them really uncomfortable
You're right.
in a setting with their peers so that when they go in to do that first, install or quote and that sofa sitting in front of the window that they've got to measure, like, what do you do? Do you take your shoes off and stand on the sofa? You try to move it, discreetly? Do you ask the homeowner to help you move this big, heavy sofa? Like, what do you do? So we
Right.
walk them through those very typical scenarios that they're going to see when they're out in the field, so we can make them feel very comfortable. But at the end of the day, that support just continues through, and franchisees can absolutely lean in. They're going to pick up the call. And the franchisees that do best with us are the ones who are regularly calling in that first 3 months that they've
Yep.
launched the business, right? Because we
I
don't
always
expect that you know everything.
Right, right. I always tell people, do not hesitate to call. That's going to be, you're going to get that item resolved so quickly. They're going to be so helpful, and you'll move on to the next, and you'll keep on learning. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
always try to
humble
remind.
humble owners are important to us. You got to be humble enough to say, I don't know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah,
And I think sometimes that fear sets in that, well, I don't want to tell the homeowner that I don't know what I'm doing. But at the end of
right,
the day, it's not so much that. I think homeowners, like, we want to champion that new guy, right? Like, if you're
right.
humble enough to say, hey, Laura, you know what? This is a brand new business for me, and I don't know the answer to that question. But if you give me just a minute, I'm going to make a phone call. I'm going to get us an answer, right? How can you not cheer for that individual,
Right. You're so
right?
right.
Right? But you've got to be humble enough to be
Absolutely.
able to be forthcoming with that, and then to pick up the phone and make that call, right? But that's where
Yeah.
we see tremendous success from franchisees for sure.
What is that process? Well, actually, let's back up. The average investment for someone going into, let's say, a two territory market.
Yeah, so we want to make sure, and I do stress this tremendously, like, if you're leaving your full-time career, we want to make sure the worst thing that you can do is plan for a business and run out of money, right?
Right. Right.
So you've got to make sure that you're well capitalized. So when we look at operational expenses and just having additional operational capital set aside,
Mm-hmm.
as you're starting a business, a single territory, you can start for 140,
Okay.
$150,000. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
nice thing, and the reason I know you asked me about multiple, but the reason I'm starting with two is because if you're starting a Bloomin' Blinds and you're thinking about buying that second territory, the only additional cost to you is really the second territory. You don't
Right.
need another
Right.
van. You don't need an employee. You don't need any inventory, right? So there's nothing that makes the investment on multiple territories more expensive other than the territory itself.
Right.
Yeah. And I think
Okay.
that's critical for people to understand. So from that perspective, our average franchisee right now is buying 2.2 territories with us because they want to secure, I always say, you want to secure those zip codes that you want to grow into. Because if you're working your Bloomin' Blinds business and you're thinking you'd like to scale into that neighboring territory, and you now see another Bloomin' Blinds van driving through, if that's dread for you, then you needed to have bought that territory. You need to consider that now. If
Mm-hmm.
your reaction to that is, this is awesome, now I've got a neighboring franchisee that we can grow the market together,
Right.
then you've got the territory that you needed for now. But you've got to think about it in that terms.
Yeah, great way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Great way. When you think about, we touched upon this somewhat, but what makes a successful franchisee in Bloomin' Blinds? What would you say are some of the top
Yeah,
qualities?
so definitely somebody who's looking for not the big engine. They truly want a relationship. They're going to lean in, they're going to ask questions, they're going to be hungry for the knowledge to grow quickly. We want somebody who does want a business. We're looking for people who truly want to grow and scale a business. Even if
Right.
you're in a really small market, we've seen some of our most successful franchisees launching and growing quickly. But at the end of the day, honestly, Laura, I just want people. I want people who like other people who
Yeah.
enjoy being with them, people that are personable, because we can teach you all the skills of being a window covering owner. And I think it's really critical to know that Bloomin' Blinds doesn't just teach you about window coverings. Bloomin' Blinds is really adept at teaching you how to be a great business owner.
Oh,
We invest
fantastic.
in financial literacy skills and things like that. So you don't have to have a background of having run a business. We really do want to teach our owners how to understand their KPIs, how to create a proper P&L or a business plan for the next year. And I think a lot of brands don't invest in that piece of the puzzle for
It is
people that are
so
leaving
critical.
corporate America, right? So you don't
Right.
have to have those skill sets. We're going to teach those, but you've got to have those soft skills that are going to make you really amiable to a homeowner.
Okay. And then the onboarding process, how long does that typically take?
So we are fortunate enough to run 2 weeks of training in Dallas every single month. When you sign on with us as a franchisee, we take you through 4 weeks of onboarding. So this is done from the comfort of home. This is a full Monday.com task board list of quite literally everything that you need to do. You got to get your van, you've got to get the vehicle wrapped, you've got to get insurance for your van. It's very granular. So you know exactly what needs to be done to prepare to open. You're going to do some training modules, and then we're going to bring you out to Dallas. So you get that 2 weeks of really immersive, hands-on, experiential training, and your marketing is being turned on at that point in time. Quite literally, Monday morning, you're coming home, your business
Wow.
is open and ready to go. So we're seeing franchisees opening in as little as 45 days, Laura.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because I mean, there's some people that, I'm talking to that really need something quickly. Some things takes,
Yep.
a long time. That is fantastic.
Yeah. And it's just that mobile piece of the business. And because we are going to fully outfit the van for you, it's just
But
getting
you were
you
doing, yeah,
prepared in order to be able to go out and start servicing customers. Yeah.
fantastic. What's one thing that you wish more franchise candidates asked you during the process?
I wish they asked me how they could better prepare to make a decision about Bloomin' Blinds.
Okay.
And I preempt that with a lot of my candidates, and I actually tell them to go competitive shop us.
Right.
I think before you make a decision about any business, you have to know who your competition is. And having competition isn't something that you should be afraid of, right?
Right.
Competition lets you know there's a need for the services in the area, and all competition is not created equal. So I will wholeheartedly tell my candidates, and we believe in our experience and the technology that we use, the communication that we have with a customer. So if you've called me in for Bloomin' Blinds, you're going to get a notification on your phone. It's very Uber-like. It's going to show you where I am, and that I'm rude. It's going to show you a
Mm-hmm.
picture of my face, so you feel very comfortable opening the door to
Right.
me as a Bloomin' Blind. We show up in a professional van. We're professionally branded. It's really white glove service for traditional
Right.
home service, right? But it's all of those things that allow you to be prepared. So when you start looking at, we use laser measuring devices. We haven't got the, tape measure on the belt and the pencil behind the ear like many of our competitors still do.
Still,
Certainly Laura's window coverings down the road is
yeah.
probably operating exactly like that. We use technology that allows us to quote in home with a visualizer where we can show your window and
Right.
functioning window coverings. We come in with tremendous amount of samples. We provide our franchisees with sample kits that they are able to show the customer so that they can touch and feel. And we're really bringing that showroom into the home for them. And when my candidates really understand what our process looks like for a homeowner, and then they start inviting some of our competition in, this is where they really can see how we stack up. And there's some great service providers and window coverings out there, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not all created equal. And I think you really have to understand, who am I going to be competing with in my marketplace should I move forward with this? So I really encourage people to do that before they make a decision
That's
about
great.
buying.
Yep. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to share about the
Yeah,
great
I would
franchise?
just say, like, if you're even curious in the slightest, this is a brand that, I've watched grow from infancy in
Right.
franchising to where it is now. If it hasn't come across loud and clear, I'm super passionate about this brand.
Yes.
But consistently, the reason franchisees tell us that they chose Bloomin' Blinds really was just the culture and the feel. So I encourage people, just lean in, learn a little bit about us,
Mm-hmm.
our differentiators, some national partnerships that we have, the technology. If you're jazzed with AI at all, this is a
Right.
brand you should be considering. It's not so much about the widget of doing window coverings, right?
Okay.
It's more about a technology company that's wrapped up in the day-to-day of doing window coverings.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I think this has been really great, very informative. I know people enjoy listening and learning more about Bloomin' Vines and yourself. I appreciate it. I didn't realize how rich your history was with them.
Yeah, it's pretty special. I
Yeah.
super connected to the Stewart family and just am so in awe of everything that they've done as three brothers and where they've grown this business to now, and just love guiding people through this journey. So
That's great.
I'd love to meet some of your candidates. If you've got some people
Yeah.
interested in what we've talked about today, I'd encourage them to connect with you directly. And then obviously you can connect them with us. But I appreciate you having me today, Laura.
Oh,
Thank
I
you for
loved it.
letting me chat about Bloomin' Blinds.
I enjoyed it. Thank you, Kelly.
My pleasure.
Bye. That's a wrap for this episode of Franchise Focus. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you're thinking about franchise ownership or want to learn more about the brands we discuss, connect with me on LinkedIn or visit my website at blackmorefranchiseconsulting.com or just leave a comment. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share it with someone. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Franchise Focus.